All right, so we talk about key lengths, and so the question is, what should be the preferred key length, right? And why we call some keys are short and some are them are enough. So in order to answer this, we have to see current technology and how many encryptions we can do in a second. So if we go back to data encryption standard test, it was designed by IBM in 1970s based on an earlier design by Feisal. In 1976, NSA tweaked the algorithm by changing its S boxes. So here they realized that IBM used bad S boxes. So they strengthened the algorithm by providing better S boxes, okay? Because IBM's initial design was susceptible to differential cryptanalysis. And NSA at that time knew differential cryptanalysis, but NSA also knew that other countries also knew this attack technique. So they strengthened the algorithm. But they did something worse because IBM in the past, in their earlier designs like Lucifer and so on, the key length was 128 bits. But NSA actually reduces to 64 bits. But in the 64 bits, they use the most significant bit of the bytes as a parity bit. So in practice, the key length reduced to 56 bits. This is because at that time they had the computational power to perform brute force attack on such a thing. Okay, so this was a huge controversy at the time. Some cryptographers claimed that this is too short, and people thought that current technology was not enough to break this. Okay, but this algorithm is currently known as not data encryption standard, but data encryption algorithm, because if you keep using the word standard, people still think that it is secure. Even just a few years ago, when you looked at Microsoft web page and search how to encrypt a file, there was a blog post explaining how you can use this to encrypt your files on your computer. They removed it just a few years ago. So it became useless after 1990s since it's short key susceptible to brute force attacks. So let's talk about how short it is, okay? Yeah, here I mentioned that NSA tweaked IBM's initial design by changing this S boxes, but didn't explain to IBM why they made such a change. IBM people analyzed this tweak and they discovered an attack that breaks the initial design. They call it T attack. This is actually the differential cryptanalysis as we know it. They shared their discovery with NSA, and NSA asked them not to share this knowledge with public, for they had known this attack type for some time and were using it to listen to other countries. But so a lot of countries, a lot of secrecy agencies knew this technique, but in academy, Biham and Shamir discovered this in 1990s and named it differential cryptanalysis because they are making small differences. This is why they call it differential cryptanalysis. So this is the first time, the first public announcement of this technique. Main idea in differential cryptanalysis is to find a weakness so that a small change in the input provides an anticipated change in the output with high probability. So here, NSA made the algorithm stronger, but reducing the key length actually, made it weak. So this is the main picture of the test, but we will talk about it in detail in the future. So let's return back to our question. What should be the key size? An attacker that captures a single cipher text can try to decrypt it with every possible key to check if it provides a meaningful plain text, right? So, and we always assume that we can capture the ciphertext because the communication channel is not secure. We listen to it and obtain it. Such an attack is called exhaustive search, exhaustive key search, or a brute force attack because you try every possible key. Exhaustive search is a generic attack. In other words, it is valid for every block cipher or a stream cipher or any cipher because you are trying every key one by one, right? For a k-bit keyed cipher, the attacker is required to perform at most 2 to the k decryptions or encryptions because sometimes you capture a single plain text block and the ciphertext block corresponding one. So in that scenario, you encrypt that plain text with every possible key and check if it matches with the ciphertext you capture. Thus, security of a block cipher is upper bounded by exhaustive search. In other words, 2 to the k encryptions or decryptions. This quantity is referred to as time complexity. This is why we say that a k-bit cipher, block cipher provides k-bit security because at most you have to try 2 to the k encryptions, right? So there are some attacks for this, like which requires 2 to the 47 chosen plaintext differential cryptanalysis or linear cryptanalysis. So these techniques didn't work in the past because, as I mentioned, NSA strengthened the S boxes. So when Biham and Shamir discovered differential cryptanalysis, they broke many ciphers practically, but they couldn't practically break this because their attack required to capture 2 to the 47 chosen plaintext and their corresponding ciphertext, which is not that realistic. Then Matsui provided first experimental cryptanalysis of this. So he used almost every computer at Mitsubishi where he was working. But these are not brute force attacks, okay? These are finding weaknesses in the cipher. But then in 1997, there was a project. Since, when we have the internet, people were using it like projects like SETI to find, extraterrestrial life and so on. But some people just tried to break this. So there were around 78,000 pieces connected, which try every possible key one by one. So the source space is divided between the people who participated in the project. So they managed to capture the secret key. Then somebody built a machine, EFS desk cracker, which contains around 2,000 custom chips. This device could break this key in 56 hours. So as you can see, in 1998, it was already broke. So this is only allowed in legacy systems, and we expect people to move on to triple this. But of course, if you don't need to use a backward compatibility, there's no point of using triple this, just move on to AES. So in 2002, advanced encryption becomes effective. Advanced encryption standard AES becomes effective. So actually, since 2002, you shouldn't be using this anymore, right? But we still see lectures where people teach this as if it is secure, okay? So as I mentioned, we have advanced encryption standard now. It was designed by 2 Belgians, John Damon and Vincent Raymond. And its block size is 128 bits, and it supports 3 key lengths, 128 bits, 192 bits, and 256 bits. And number of runs depends on your choice of secret key length. And as far as we know, there are no attacks that break this system, okay? Known attacks are ineffective. So let's move on to our original question. So how hard is the exhaustive search or brute force attack? So if you use this, your secret key is 56 bits. So the attacker needs to perform 2 to the 56 encryptions, right? And this is that number. But if you move on to, for instance, present with 80-bit secret key, since this is exponential, as you can see, the source space increases exponentially. If you move on to 128 bits, it is this, 192 and 256. In order to realize that this is really a huge number, actually, in the observable universe, the number of atoms are around this magnitude, okay? So it is a really huge number. So what you can do, you can use CPUs to perform this brute force attacks, but GPUs are a lot faster in parallelized algorithms. And here it is embarrassingly parallel because every GPU thread will be trying a different key and perform the same operation, right? You can use FPGAs to perform brute force attacks, or you can burn them into silicon and optimize FPGA implementation and build dedicated devices. And of course, this will be a lot faster compared to previous ones. This is why Bitcoin miners use ASICs, right? Because they have SHA-256, which is very optimized. So this is also energy efficient compared to GPUs. But GPUs are, generic devices, generic computational devices where you can directly buy from the market. So this is the best thing you can get. So on a modern GPU, it is possible to try 2 to the 32 keys in a second for many block ciphers. So since a year has like 2 to the 24 seconds, as you can see, a GPU can break this in less than a year, right? Maybe a few months. So this is why this is not good. But here's a some of my recent results for DES or triple DES. These are the number of keys that you can try in a second. And if you write them as a power of 2, these are the number of keys that you can try on these GPUs. So as you can see, this doesn't provide any security. With thousands of GPUs, you can break it in a few hours. Presently, similar thing applies, but since it has more runs, we can try less number of keys compared to this. And for AES, we have better results. For instance, you can try 2 to the 32 keys per second on a GPU that is 2 generations old, right? So as you can see, if I focus on present, if I have billions of GPUs or people on the internet come together, breaking 2 to the 80 with key, performing 2 to the 8 encryptions is not that hard. It might take a few years, but you can break it. So this is why you shouldn't be using 80-bit security, because if we can break it with GPUs, somebody with dedicated hardware can break it in maybe a few days. But then you might ask, why then we are claiming that this is secure, right? Just assume that we technologically advanced, and if we use every computational device in the world, and we can try 2 to the 80 encryptions in a second, okay? Assume that we can do it. Then 2 to the 128 key will still be secure, because if I can perform this many operations in a second, I need 2 to the 48 seconds to break AES, right? And as I mentioned, a year has 2 to the 24 seconds, so I need like 2 to the 24 years, which is, I think, 16 billion years still. So even if you can perform this many operations in a second, you still cannot break AES 128, right? This is why we say that you should move on to 128-bit and have enough security.